Okay, hopefully people can hear me. If someone can just say so, just so I'm not sitting here chatting in silence for the next couple of hours. I'm assuming audio is coming through okay, Alex? Cool. So hello and welcome back to the third part of this Wednesday stream series, all around building serverless apps on AWS. So this week we're going to take a little bit of a different tack and have a look at building the front end of this application. Obviously for those of you who were here last week, this will be a quick reminder. For those of you who were not, it'll be a kind of overview of where we're up to now. So what we've done so far is we've built the infrastructure for our data store. So we've used DynamoDB for that. We've talked about things like the single table design. So using one table to store lots of different kind of types of data. So we have that we've talked about and looked at. We've implemented all of the different kind of RESTful routes that we need for storing different types of coffee beans that we've got in our cupboard that we're going to be making coffees with. So now I think a logical next step is to look at building out a really simple front end so that we can actually push this data into our API in a way that is a bit more familiar to people than using Postman. So without further ado, let's get started. So for the front end, I'm going to be using React because it's kind of what I can write most easily. I'm by no means a front end developer, so if you are a front end developer and watching this, I apologise, but I know enough to be dangerous. And I'm going to be using Tailwind UI purely because nobody wants to sit and watch me try and hack my way through CSS for 2 hours. So having some pre-built components is going to be really useful. So let's just get some things open. It's been a long time since I've done anything significant with front-end development, so there will be a little bit of documentation scanning to do this particular session, which is fine. That's part of the daily life of developing. Very few people are able to just jump straight into a problem without having some kind of read of documentation. So for those of you who haven't kind of heard of Tailwind as a first thing, Tailwind is a sort of CSS. I think they describe it as a kind of utility first framework rather than kind of being Bootstrap, where you might have a class that's called button and then button blue and that sort of thing. Tailwind takes it in a different direction. So if you, there we go. Tailwind kind of works on this idea of everything being very descriptive. So your class would be BG Slate 100, and Slate 100 will be a particular color on a scale of 9 slate-like colors. So some really good stuff coming out of Tailwind. Tailwind itself is free, completely open source. Tailwind UI is their means of making money from it. And I think you pay your one-off fee and get access to updates forever. So yeah, I think it's great. So yeah, let's get started. So what we want to do is let's get going with a simple React app first of all, shall we? So I think I've got this installed on my machine, but let's just double check. Cool, so now I can just run create React app, and hopefully I need to go there. So create React app is just a kind of bootstrapping kind of first party tool that you can use. Oh, that would be a really good idea, wouldn't it, Alex? There we go. Apologies for that. Happens all the time. You chat away on a Teams call and then realise that you haven't shared your screen for 5 minutes. But hopefully you can see that now. So yeah, just installing create React app here gives us the kind of basic structure we need, and some utilities for things like building the application or building the React part of it, running a kind of development server locally, and doing all that sort of thing. So let's do this, and then at least we've got two tabs that we can flick between things if we need to. Cool. So hopefully this will pop up in here in a minute. There we go. So we can see here we've got kind of some example things, and if we run in our front end directory npm start, I forgot I was doing that. Never mind. Yeah, so this is our kind of React app that's running. It runs on a local port on your local machine, just so we've got somewhere quick that we can develop against, and not have to do things like reload the page to get changes. So what we'll see is if we edit this app.js file here, something like that, we've saved it, and then it's updated in there. So it gives us a nice quick feedback loop. Rather than go into all the kind of ins and outs of React, because I'm not going to do it in today's session, purely because one, I'm not the right person to do it, and two, it's this whole stream is around kind of serverless and how we can integrate and build an application with that. So I'm doing the front end as a little bit of an extra, but I'm sure if you make the right noises to Norfolk developers, they will get someone on to do a React stream. So yeah, I'm now going to go and install kind of requirements for Tailwind UI inside this React application. So if you kind of bear with whilst I go ahead and do all of this. Okay, so we've installed Tailwind. What else are we going to need? We're going to need the Forms plugin for Tailwind. So let's just install that while we're here. And from memory, the typography one is quite useful as well. Cool. So what have we got in here then? So we've got our main React application that we've got so far. Just following this through, what we will do is we need to make sure that we are loading in the Tailwind CSS files. So we've installed this here. We can now run this one, which creates our config file for us, which exists at the base of the repo. Then hopefully my face isn't covering up the bottom of this command window. Are we just all right? Yeah. So then what we then need to do is update this here. It's quite good. They've kind of written it. Yeah, they've kind of written everything that's designed to be used with kind of React or Vue, so it is quite easy to get going with. So then let's also install these two. Post CSS and auto prefix are our kind of build tools that Tailwind uses. So now let's add these plugins into our Tailwind file. Was it there it goes into? Oh no, post CSS config. That's where it needs to go. You can tell I don't do front-end development very often. That goes in there. What else have we got? So then in our Tailwind file itself, we need to add in this, and obviously the React format for files is JSX, which is this kind of mixture of JavaScript and HTML. So we need to add that in there. And then the last bits should just be to add these into our main CSS file here. And then we're going to get rid of this because we want Tailwind to handle all of our base stuff. I'm going to get rid of the front end testing bits because we're not going to be looking at that today, and I don't want to just overly complicate this repository any more than it needs to be. We aren't going to need that logo. This is fine. Okay, cool. So the way that this works is this is the file that gets included on the kind of public index HTML page. So what you'll get is it runs this script, it finds that root element, and that root element is this one here, and then renders our React app inside that. So anything inside these kind of tags here will get rendered. So we start off with our kind of top level app. What I'm probably going to do is get rid of this index CSS and just use this app one. I think everyone has different opinions on how these things should work, but I'm gonna roll with mine. Okay, so let's make this really simple now. So we've got a div, and a paragraph here. And what I'm going to do is to make sure that Tailwind is working, or very quickly find out that it isn't, I'm going to do something like text and then let's give this a background of grey, just so we can see that something's happening. And then let's do npm run dev. Was it dev or was it start? There we go, start. Cool, so we've got our blue text on our very, very light grey background. So when we look at this in here, we can see that, I don't know if I can zoom in on this or not. There we go. Our background and our text there. So we are all good on the React side. So we've got something working. We've got Tailwind all wired up, so we can start to kind of pull in some Tailwind UI components in order to sort of build the forms that we need and all of that sort of thing. There's nothing else we need to do from this to get going with. There's all sorts of optimization stuff you can do when you are releasing to production, instructions for how to get it set up with the IDE, all this sort of thing. But yeah, we're not gonna worry about that for today. So the only other thing we will add is this here. So all of the Tailwind UI examples use a theme called, a font called Inter. So we're going to use that because they look best when it uses the font that they designed them with. Not to say you can't change the font, but for the sake of time, I think it makes sense. And then what you can do is inside our Tailwind file, we can use the default Tailwind theme, and you can kind of use this config file as a way to extend. So we can extend the default theme and say that all of our fonts that are kind of sans serif should use this one by default, and after that they'll fall back to the standard stack of kind of Helvetica and the various system fonts that your operating system of choice decides to force upon you. So what we can do is we can then say in here font sans, for example, and we should find that now if we look at this, our font is Inter. So far, so good. So let's have a look in Tailwind UI and let's find some components that we want to use. So Tailwind UI is split up into 3 sections. One being kind of marketing-like components for a website, so pricing pages, that sort of thing. One new one being the e-commerce stuff, but for us, we're going to be looking at this kind of application UI. So what we can start with is we can start with this kind of overall layout, I think. So yeah, let's find one that we like, and we'll go from there. What have we got on here? Let's go for, because we haven't got a lot that's going to go into our kind of navigation, we'll go for one of these ones, I think. I quite like this one, I think. So you can literally just take the code from here, but you can also choose what kind of target you're going to put it into. So if you change it to React, you then get the examples in React, which obviously makes sense. And they give you kind of dummy data to fill up navigation and all of these things as well. So let's take this to start with, and yeah, let's go from there. So what we'll do is we will, where are we? I think we should just replace this entire page. We'll import our app CSS file again at the top so that we have access to Tailwind. We've got a few dependencies here that this one is comes from Tailwind. It's a kind of, they call it headless UI, so it's, the idea is it's unstyled functional components, so things like menus, so non-opinionated in terms of how they look, but yeah, they're designed with kind of accessibility and that sort of thing in mind. And the second is this kind of, I don't know whether you meant to call it hero icons or hero icons or whatnot, but it's they're all designed by one of the people behind Tailwind, so naturally they make their way into this too. So let's call this app, which is what we call the other one, and well, let's just see if it's actually worked, shall we? Cool, so it's detected that we're on a small screen, so I've kind of added that all of these Tailwind UI examples are responsive as well. But if I were to zoom out, then it's obviously much more like how it should be. So what we will do is, there's some stuff in here that we're not going to need, so things like, I don't think we're going to get on to looking at authentication. Probably not today, maybe next week, depending on other bits. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this in here as kind of a bit of a dummy area. But really what we want to look at is this idea of, well, coffee beans is our first one. So we'll keep this dashboard page, we'll keep this page empty, but we'll create another page which will be for our for our coffee beans. So what we want to do is, let's just close some of these down so we know what we're working with. So it looks like this piece here is going to be looking at the description kind of in the class name. We've got white background, rounded corners, a bit of a shadow, and some padding. So that's going to be our bit here, which is kind of where our content goes. So at the moment, this is, I think, probably where we want to start thinking about putting content. What we probably want to do is, how should we do this? We want to, let's create in here a folder called, say, components, and call it coffee beans, and let's do this one as like an index component. So the idea I've kind of got here is that this single React component will just be sort of filling in this gap in the middle here, which kind of works nicely for us. So what I need to do is obviously be rendering different content depending on what page we're on. So let's ignore things like the navigation bar for the moment. Let's just purely focus on kind of what we're getting in this box here. So if we look at React Router, I think. So React Router is another JavaScript package, and that package well, it provides kind of what you'd expect it to provide based on the name. So what we will do is get that installed. Npm install React Router. And then looking at this kind of example on here, kind of imagine this is our this as our app component. So we'll take all of these things here because we're going to need them. So let's add all of them in there. You need to wrap the entire thing in a router tag, and then I need to do this as well. Cool. And then the way this works is you can kind of create this switch group almost, and it returns and renders the component that matches best on here. And then these links here mean that when you click on one of these links, it won't refresh the page. It will just kind of use this idea of a single page application that React gives you to flick between pages without having to actually re-render or refresh the browser, which is nice and seamless. So what we will do is we will let's in this app file here, I'm going to create an object here just called roots, and essentially what I want this to do is for it to return a certain component based on the root that it's a root that it's got. So if I import from import index as coffee bean index, this is really where my front end skills do not show. definitely a way to do this. Oh, I can just name it here, can't I? Because it's the only thing being exported from this particular file. So what we'll do is we'll say return that particular component when this route is hit. So we've got this idea here of the switch and the routes. So let's replace this bit here, which is dash border inside our kind of white box we saw on the screen. But what I'm going to do is inside this switch, rather than kind of hard coding it, I'm going to do this instead. So I'm going to do routes dot object dot items, or is it entries? That's what I was looking for. It's called items in Python, which, if you hadn't guessed, is my language I can write without looking at documentation too often. So this object entries, you get the value, which is going to be our component, and then the key, which will be our let's call it root URL. And then what we will do inside here is we'll use this. So it'll be return something like this. Let's get rid of these ones. And the path will be our root URL. And then this here will be our component. So what we'll have here, I'm sure this returns like that. It's the cool. That looks more like it might work. So if we then go on to our index page here for our kind of coffee beans, you can kind of keep in mind this is only going to be that part inside the white box. So if I return in here, I say hello, then what will happen is if the server was running, importing something? No. Have I stumbled across some really old documentation here? I wonder. Doesn't look like it. Why is that not found? Oh, I think I have got some old documentation here. Yeah, it's called roots instead of React router, or roots rather than switch, rather. Roots. Let's try again. I would suspect we've got a big error message in here. Index is not a root component. All components. Okay, so that's changed as well. Okay, cool. So we are getting somewhere now. And in order for React to keep track of kind of what's changed in the document model, components that have been created kind of dynamically need this key given to them, which should be unique within that kind of group here. You can often just get that as the index from when you're iterating over something. Cool, so we've got something that's not erroring now, which is always a good start. So if we go to, what was it? It was coffee, let's call it coffee beans, I think. And in fact, what we can do is, whilst we're here, let's create one in here that will go to coffee beans. And then where is this navigation? What does it do? We want to make sure that these are using the link components. Which is probably going to break a whole lot of stuff. Link to, there we go. Cool. So when you're at this coffee beans one, it's going to hit that. Because we haven't got anything else at the moment, it's always going to fall back to that one. So what I suggest we do is we create a kind of default route, and we'll call it, let's call it just dashboard, for example. Then we can tidy up this here, and we'll just quickly mock up a page that we can use for the dashboard. Right, so we've now got a dashboard page, and we've got our beans page, which is saying hello. So we're all kind of good there. I think what I'm going to do is, so that we've always got a bit of overlap here, I'm going to set, there's a minimum height property you can use, or minimum height class you can use in Tailwind. So we can say for this here, which is our container for our content, we could say maybe min height. Well, how does that look? Is that enough? You also have to checking the documentation for Tailwind is something that you probably do have to do quite a lot. Okay, so I can actually specify it as a custom thing. So let's say min height 150 pixels. Is that going to work? Cool. So let's give it 200, and then we'll be golden. Cool. Cool. So we've got that. We'll worry about this kind of page title here later on, in terms of changing it. What I am going to do, however, is just change it now to say something that isn't dashboard. And we will also work with this later, where we can kind of update the status of which item is selected in the navigation bar, depending on what route you are on. So, let me grab a drink quickly. Let's find ourselves a nice list component, shall we, that we can use from Tailwind UI. So we've got here we go, tables. What have we got? There's not much they haven't thought of in terms of lists and tables, and calendars is a new one. What information are we storing about coffee beans? And that'll probably dictate how much we need to name, strength, first. Okay. I think we should go for Let's go for something like this one, I think. So there's going to be a little bit in here of kind of trying to maybe extract this bit that we really need from it. So what do we want? Actually thinking about this, what I might do is just not do it inside this box, because a lot of these examples are kind of designed to go on top of sort of grey backgrounds or something, and I wonder if it might look a little bit lost just on a plain white background. So I'm gonna very quickly move our content out of this, create a new main thing here, see how this is going to look. Okay, and then somewhere there's going to be this here, which you don't necessarily want to do. Okay, I think that will do. We'll just take off that margin a little bit. Another really nice thing that Tailwind has got is a kind of built-in container that you can use. So you can say this here. So if I put this main section of our code into a container, and then what you can also do is you can, in your Tailwind config, you can add kind of padding to your container and also center the container automatically. So in here, I can say theme container and then center true. And what we should get is hopefully, yeah, something that will be a bit closer to the middle of the page, so that we've got a consistent kind of, whenever you downsize the screen, it's going to always have a little bit of a gap on the edge. Probably an argument that this should be the same, but we will deal with my lack of design skills later on. So let's find a nice list thing we can use. So I think we should use this one. We have got, in that case, let's take all of this and see what it looks like. This is going to go in our coffee beans index here, and let's do index. Okay, that looks kind of straight away pretty good. This is really going to bug me, but I will hack about with that probably after this stream is finished. Either that or make this one be limited to the same width as this or something. That's very non-functional for what we need to deliver today, really. So yeah, we've got all of this, which is nice. At the moment, obviously, we've got this kind of fake job posting data in there. So the first thing I want to do is sort of start changing this data to be something that's more akin to what we're actually storing in the background. So what have we got here? So we've got position type, it's going to be engineering, position title. Okay, well first of all let's change this to bean, because it's a bean, it's not a job position. And then we'll have a look at this. So we've got name, strength, roaster, and tasting notes. And then when we return it from the API, this is the format it's coming back in. So we're going to have an ID, which is fine. We can use that for our key. So let's, on this page here, let's do bean name. And then I think you should have the roaster underneath. Then the strength, I think. And the tasting notes I don't think are really going to fit kind of on here, perhaps. Or maybe they would. Actually, yeah. Let's put tasting notes on there. Let's get rid of this one, and then I think we can use this bit on the right hand side maybe as a kind of indicator of the strength. Yeah, let's try that, shall we? Except I want another one of where are we? Another one of these, I think. And this is going to be our roaster in there rather than next to the name. So if we go through here and change these now, so we'll have an ID, we'll have a name, we'll have a roaster, tasting notes, and a strength, which will be a number. So we can then look at these here, and we can, I think we should look to use this one here on the right hand side as the strength. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this out of here, and I'm just going to, for now, just print out the strength. However, yeah, what I really want to do, I think, is add some, like, maybe number of coffee cups or something, perhaps. So we've now got this kind of list starting to come together. So what I do want to do is just, I don't think I need that extra div. I think that can go in there with that one, and that should bring them closer together. Yeah, cool. And let's just add something between them. And there is a Tailwind thing with CSS grid that's quite cool for this, but yeah, for now I'm just going to go for adding some margin on here to the right hand side of that first one. There we go. And then we can use some icons as well, can't we, to make that look a little bit nicer. So we need tasting notes, we need something to do with coffee strength, so maybe let's what can we use? Could be a challenge given they're all quite tech focused icons, but we might have to make do with something. Let's use the shopping cart for the roaster. So that's all I can think of for now. And let's use the solid ones I think we're using, aren't we? How does that look? Okay, that'll do. Tasting notes is going to be what could we have? Let's use like a light bulb or something. And then the strength, I can't find anything that's coffee related, so I'm going to go for just writing the strength in there. So let's change this to like some actual coffees that are real, and then okay, that looks all right. So we've now got this this page, I suppose, that's this page that's going to list all of our different coffee beans. And really what we want is we want to be pulling data back from our API to populate this page. So let's do that, I think, as our first task. So I've redeployed the API. That's all up and running already. All I do need to do is just add some data into the database. So let's find the URL for the API, and then let's post some data to our endpoint. Then let's add our one that we've just put in. So maybe strength 4. Cool. So we've got a couple of coffees in there now. So if we were to make a GET request against our endpoint, we should get back our 2 coffees we just added. Lovely. So what we need to do is we need to make our request in here and populate this list, don't we? So what can we use? I always used to use Axios for making HTTP requests, but I think now things like the fetch API are pretty good. So I'm going to give that a go. Cool. So this is where we are going to need to use some of the React hooks. So hooks essentially are ways to do certain things at certain parts of the life cycle in a React components rendering. There is a diagram on the React documentation for it, and what it means that we can say, okay, once you've rendered the component for the first time, so that your user doesn't end up waiting for ages for a request to come back, why not render it with a kind of loading screen, make your request, populate the data state, and then it will automatically re-render with your new data, which is what we want. So let's do that now. This example, this is kind of what we need, but it doesn't use hooks, which we need to use because we're using functional components rather than class components. So let's grab some bits of code here. So there's two hooks we'll need to use. One is called use state and one is called use effect. They're the two we'll probably use most often in this. So what we'll have for state will be in here we can define our coffee beans and a method called set coffee beans, and that state is going to be initialized with a list or an array if we're talking in JavaScript terms. And then use effect, what we'll do is we can put in here this use effect. We have some kind of callback, and then you can give it a list of things it depends upon. So by giving it an empty array, what it will do is it will render, or it will run this callback in here once your component has mounted for the first time. So what we'll do is we will grab this code from this example. We'll also add another one in here for the loading state, and we're going to obviously initialize that to be false, because then what we can do is within here we can make our API request. We'll set our state, but then we'll do it slightly differently to this. So this again is using those class-based functions, whereas we are going to do it with these functions that have been created by the useState hook. So we can say we'll make sure that our coffee beans is empty, and we will set is loaded to be probably true, but then maybe we need a third one, which is something like error message, set error message. And we can say something like this, just so we know that it's failed. Then what we'll do in this one is, once we've got our result back from the API, we will update the coffee beans here in the state. So we'll say set coffee beans to be, I think we return it as coffee beans if we look in Postman, which is like this. And then this is the list we want to populate in our React component. We'll populate that, and then we'll set is loaded to be true. So then what we'll do in here is we'll be able to change this to say, okay, this is going to be our coffee beans. What we'll want to do is we can say if there is if it's not loaded, so if is loaded equals false. This is again my Python habits kicking in. So if is loaded as false, then let's still return one of these. Let's find a loading icon or something we can use. There must be something. That one will do. Refresh. And there's quite a nice thing you can do in Tailwind. You can add animations to things. So we could say like add this animate spin, and then using just CSS, it will it will automatically do all that for us as well, which is quite nice. So let's just make this a little bit bigger as well. So if we comment out this use effect for now, we know that this is loaded is going to be false straight away. So if we look at our app, we've got this loading spinner. So perhaps we could just add in, let's add in like something that just says it is loading. And then we'll just add some margin to the left of that. Wasn't it like where I put a comma? That's better. And you've got things like the flex align items and justify items, things you can use to center them on the same line or center them in the middle of their parent container as well. So let's we've now got this. This is obviously going to fail because this API is just an example one. Then what we can do is we can say if it's loading, then obviously say so. We can do if error message isn't, I think null is what we said was the default. We will we can print out the error message, so it's kind of obvious what's gone wrong, and obviously we'll make that red, and we'll give that the warning one because that's obviously useful for did that not get imported? Maybe it's not called warning. Maybe it's exclamation. That's what it's called. Cool. So we've got a nice, well, not nice, but functional message to say, yeah, your requests has failed, which is what we expect because it's not our endpoint we're trying to hit. So what we do need to do, however, is we do need to make sure we are going to be hitting our endpoint. So what we want to do is use probably something like a environment file, I think, for this. So what we'll do is we will add in here our API URL, which is this, which is the start of it. And from memory, you had to prefix something. You had to prefix it with React public or something. Something you have to do in order to use them. React app, that's what it was. Let's do React app API base, we'll call it. Cool, so we've got that, and then we need to install the .env, I think it's called. Yeah. And then by doing this require here in our app component, which is kind of the top of everything. In fact, let's go a level higher. Let's go into our index one here. Let's do it more like this. Keep everything consistent. Didn't want to delete that one, did I? So hopefully what we can now do is we can then do, I think it's process.env, is it? Process.env, yeah. Cool. So let's then in our index here, we can start this off with our process.env.react app API base. And then the end of our URL will just be coffee beans. And then let's finish that off there. So we're going to get our result. Hopefully it will look like this. And now if we restart our development server, maybe we'll have something working. Maybe I do have to do it in the, maybe I've tried to be too clever. maybe I don't need to add that in, perhaps. Maybe it's already built into create React app by the looks of things. Let's try again. Okay, well, it compiled that time, which is a good start. And our API request was made, but it failed. That's probably all right. And the age-old issue of cores. So, yeah, that makes sense, because our API gateway isn't configured to allow requests from any domain that isn't itself at the moment, especially when it comes to the front end stuff. So yeah, that makes sense. So let's add that onto our CloudFormation template, because that's going to be useful. Well, I say useful, it's going to be essential. There's no way we're going to get around using that one. So let's have a look at the documentation for this, which is our API resource in here. You've already got a cores property that we can just add the relevant configuration into it. So we want to say, well, first of all, I need to understand exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so let's say allow methods. So we'll have options, post, get, put, and delete. Allow headers, everything. Allow origin. I have to give it a double bracket because it needs the single quotes in the actual value. Okay, and allow origin. I didn't think I had to just put localhost. Maybe I do. Oh no, apparently I can. We're running on port 3001 because I forgot to stop running something else. So let's just make sure I've got some credentials to use. No, I haven't. Cool. So I need to get some credentials for this, which I'm going to do on a different screen because I don't want everyone seeing all of that. Right, so we should now have try again. Yep, lovely. So we can do sam build and sam deploy. Maybe I should set up some IP address policies on the API gateway so I haven't got to worry about tearing it down every time, to avoid things like Alex. At the moment, if you use Postman, you could do it. There's no restrictions on that. I did want to get onto authentication and looking at how I could do that with kind of front end and back end combined, but yeah, I don't know if we're going to have time. Unfortunately. Okay, so that's deployed that. It should be the same 7B 8 something or other. Let's run that again and see what happens. Okay, so it's still not working. Why not? Let's have a look at this. In fact, if I let's make a request in Postman and just see what headers are coming back, so we can see whether it is actually okay, so it isn't even setting that. That's handy. Alright, options, here we go. Localhost 3001, and I'm pretty sure that's the problem I'm having. Yeah. Let's try adding in just a star for that. In case it's not recognizing it. Let's just validate that it is actually coming through. Yep. And try again in the browser. Very strange. Normally, Kev, you wouldn't when it's a regular URL. But I don't know if you do for localhost. Let's try it with just that. I have officially run out of coffee today. I'm in between deliveries. My last batch has run out, and my delivery from strangers won't be here until Friday. So tomorrow is going to be a challenging day. Just to save us wasting too much time on this, with this course bits, I'm gonna, I think, just allow everything through, because this is, I don't want to spend half an hour trying to debug cores when we could be doing other bits as well. Although if this bit doesn't work, then I'm very confused. Still. Unless I need to add, oh, no, I don't need to, I'll just do it with, oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. So, yeah, is this bit here. The backend is responsible for returning access control allow origin and access control allow headers. Because a proxy integration doesn't return an integration response. Although which I think is why we can see them in the options request, but not in the get requests. So if I try, I'm sure I haven't got to do that. Lambda proxy, lovely. There we go. Not lovely, confusing, but hey ho, is what it is. So let's do this, shall we? So what do we need? We need so methods is allowed in the CloudFormation, so we can put that back in there. headers and origin don't get sent through, so we need to add them in our response code. However, because we are using Lambda Power Tools, that takes care of that response for us. So I think here we go. I need to add this in here, and it will automatically add it as part of the this resolver bit here we do. And then in here we can say cause config is cause config. That comes from, I think it was there. Yeah. We will allow localhost for now. Okay, cool. That's fine. Origin is allowed through the app code, and methods are allowed through the API gateway code. Let's try this and see if the wonders of AWS have come together at last. It's always this kind of bootstrapping bit where you're trying to get kind of a JavaScript front end talking to an API, and all of those bits that are kind of the fun, or not fun, the necessary bits that come before the bits where you can actually start seeing functionality work. But such is life. Okay, that has deployed. So let's just try this with a GET request now and see what comes back on the headers. There's nothing that would be a good indication of why there's nothing in the headers. Which one was it? It was one of these, wasn't it? That one there. Cannot import name cause config. Did I import it from the wrong place? Oh no, I made a typo. I can't blame AWS for that one. There is a new feature in AWS SAM that I'm yet to try out, which is you can get to a running SAM sync, and it's the same kind of hot reloading type model that kind of React development servers use. And it on surface it looks really cool because it means that your code is always being updated in the Lambda whenever you hit save. So you've never got to go through this process of hitting deploy and waiting for it to build and all of this. It just keeps doing it on the fly. But as of yet, I haven't actually had a chance to properly give it a go. How is this still failing? What's going on? I've imported it from the wrong place. Although, am I... Okay, that's what it is. So apparently this API gateway REST resolver is existing in 2 different places you can import it from. Yes, Colin, the Power Tool stuff you can certainly install locally, and that will give you things like type hinting. I think you can just install it from a pip package. So it is kind of primarily Python. TypeScript has just come out. Java has been around for a little while, but Python seems to be where the most of the activity is. Well, certainly in the world that I see. But yeah, you can install it locally. You won't kind of get a massive amount for it locally in terms of things like the tracing and the logging. They obviously won't do very much on your local machine, but in terms of writing, say, unit tests to see what format the code comes out in or what format the response comes out in, then absolutely you can run it locally. Right. The fact it took a little bit of a while suggests something's happening. Unexpected keyword document. Oh, it's cause equals cause config. You can tell it's starting to get to the end of the stream. My brain is starting to turn to mush. It's the lack of coffee, you see. I had my one this morning that, well, it was a latte, but the latte art on top was questionable, but still tastes the same. But yeah, my next couple of bags are hopefully being delivered on Friday, all being well. There we go, it's working now. Or at least the API is returning something. Whether React will work or not is a different story. Hey, there we go. How's that? So we've now got our API hooked up. It's returning data that we that we want it to return. It's real data. It's in our database. If I was to go and add another one in there, so I think the other one I've just ordered is this one. I can't remember what it tastes like. I think it was like red berries and something like that. And then let's say it's not a very strong one, so I'm yet to try it. So added one there, hit refresh, and then we've got our new blend in here. So we've got it we've kind of got everything feeding through now, which is good. What I think I'd like to do kind of longer term with this is maybe group these. So you'd end up with you'd group these by which company is roasted them. So you might have a heading here that says strangers, one that says Horshams, and then one that says Rave or Pact or whoever you choose for your coffee. So that I think would be nice to have on here, but end of the day not a essential feature to have. Okay, cool. So this is certainly giving me some hope that things are heading in the right direction now. So what I'd like to do next, I think, is we've got kind of 15 minutes or so next. I want to build out the form for adding a new coffee bean, I think. That would be a sensible next place to go, I believe. And yeah, just to Alex's point about if you want to do this kind of thing day to day, or do this thing kind of day to day, and looking for a change, a new challenge, whatever wording you want to use for it, then if you go to inawisdom.com/careers, we've kind of got a few vacancies open at the moment, but are always open to talking to the right people, and you never know what will happen from a conversation. So I had a chat, and well, here I am a year later. So I'll stick the link to that in the chat. But yeah, some great people there, and some of them even know how to write front end better than me, which, believe it or not, is possible. So yeah, we've kind of got all this wired up now. It's looking all right. It's not horrendous. That's kind of the beauty of Tailwind UI, is that you can put something together that doesn't look too bad fairly quickly. But yeah, let's add a new page in now for creating a coffee bean, and see if we can get this whole loop in there, shall we? So we need a button. Is anything in here that I can nick straight away? Here we go. So let's go for one of these buttons, shall we? So let's take say something like this sort of penultimate one that's reasonably sized. Then we're going to add this into our this index page, which is showing our current list. So what we'll do is we'll put it right at the top here. So with React components, everything has to be wrapped by something. So when you return a component, you couldn't have, say, two adjacent divs with no parent. However, you can now use this React fragment functionality, which means you haven't got to do that, which does make life a little bit easier if you don't want to have to kind of double wrap everything in elements you don't necessarily want to. So we've got this button. Let's just do kind of add bean and let's do a plus in a circle. And then what we'll do is we will just make this a flex and put it right at the end. And we'll just make sure there's a bit of a gap underneath it before we get to our list. Yeah, that looks all right, doesn't it? I've seen worse. I think it's a little bit big, so let's just make it a touch smaller. Where's our text size in here? Text base. Let's just drop this. Yeah. And maybe drop the boldness as well. Which of the links is it that's not working, Colin? Just out of interest, and I'll get it updated tomorrow. I'll have a chat with one of our friendly marketing people. Yeah, so let's use this here. We'll use that link component that we had, and then the link will go to a route that will be, say, coffee beans. New. Or add bean. Yeah, I prefer that. And then let's close off this link wherever I've forgotten to close a thing, and put that button inside it. Oh, fat fingers. So that's not doing anything at the moment because we haven't got a add bean page. What it does mean is we can now go back to our coffee beans components folder here, and we'll create a file called add, and in our main app here we can add into our list of routes, say coffee beans, add bean, and then we can get that from there, so that when we do visit that page, we will get what we're expecting. So then let's find in Tailwind UI an example of a form that we can use, shall we? Because forms is one thing that I am terrible at making look half decent, so this is always useful to have. I think we'll go for this one. So let's put the whole thing in, and then Just take out the bits you don't want. It's normally the best way to work. And then there's a comment at the start of this that said, yes, a comment at the start that said we need to add this Tailwind Forms plugin. So we installed it right at the start of this stream, but we do need to add it into our plugins array down here to make sure that it's going to get pulled in. And then if we hit refresh on this, we've then got our nice form that's going to give us this add coffee bean stuff here. So let's try and locate wherever this is. Okay. There should be 2 of them. So we want to say anything underneath this can go, because we're not that interested in that. Maybe up to where'd it go? There. Up to maybe there. Or go one further, in fact. So hopefully we'll just have left this one. Yeah, there we go. This one kind of form component, which is all we really need. So let's just start filling this out with some fake data. So some things in here we definitely don't want to keep. So things like photo and cover photo will be going. So let's find them and get rid of them straight away. So wherever this one finishes, go. And that one can go. Then this one can be in fact, I think we could probably make all of these but really just straightforward, like 4 text fields, because all they are just, maybe this one could be a list of from 1 to 5 or a radio buttons or something, but yeah, the other ones are just going to be name, roaster, and tasting notes can just be, maybe tasting notes can stay as a text area, but let's put that one in here. And then we need 2 text fields. There were some down here, weren't there, that we deleted earlier. In hindsight, it might not have been worth deleting earlier, but never mind. Let's take this one. So let's go for it's one of those kind of fake projects where you could take this really far and like do autocomplete and stuff like that on the roster, so that if you've got other ones by the same company, you can work a bit quicker. But for now, I'm just gonna not delve into that. Are there any radio buttons in here? There are, somewhere down the bottom. Let's find them. And put them there. What have I done? Okay, that's where the field set came in. That went here. Let's just let's use the same style here for the and then let's ditch that. And then let's not make these medium. Let's just do regular weight fonts, so that will look a bit less like it's, yeah. Let's do let's go through to 5, I think, for these, and then we'll just finish off tonight with by pushing this up to the API and call it quits there if it goes straightforward. If it doesn't, then we will start off with that next week. What would be nice is maybe like a sliding scale where you can choose your strength, but for now, this does the trick. So what we probably want to do is, or we definitely want to do, is we need to obviously get this posting to the API. Now, so there's two ways you can do it. You can just do it with regular like HTML form actions and that sort of thing, but that will trigger a refresh on the page, which probably isn't what you really want. So what you can do is do it all in JavaScript. So when you update the text in these particular inputs, you update something in your state, and you just keep on updating things as you go through. And then when you are done and you hit submit, you send that body of JSON or that object or whatever off to your API. Now that I said it out loud, I think it probably makes sense to do it next time, because it's going to be a good 10-15 minutes of work to get it done, providing everything is happy and goes smoothly, which is never the way with developing, especially when you're doing it live to what I'm assuming is an enormous audience. So yeah, we'll call it there, I think. I'm pleased with where we've got to today. We've obviously got this list of coffee beans coming back. We've built the page to add a new coffee bean. We just need to wire it up to the API. What I will do is, I know that the kind of the idea of these Wednesday streams is that it's a kind of 4-part series, which would make next week the last one, or sort of 4 with an option of a 5th if you need it. So kind of in terms of what's left to do, we've still got the API for the actual making of the coffee. So let's say like I've used this bean, I've used these settings, etc. And we've got the front end stuff for editing, updating, deleting a coffee bean, which is fine because we can reuse this same view, I think, for all of those, so it's not too much of a problem. But yeah, it might be that if we do run out of time next week and we're a little way off the end, then I can extend it to a 5th session, or just carry on this either as pre-recorded videos or outside of Norfolk developers if you want to stick to your kind of set number of streams. But yeah, that's rambling. Thank you to those who come back or are new to this, or whatever way you've got involved in this stream in particular, and the streams I've done thus far. It's really different to try a format like this. Normally I tend to stick to the kind of 1 hour polished, rehearsed talks. So doing something that's a bit more kind of off the cuff is quite nice. So thank you for the opportunity for doing that, and for listening. But yeah, let's call it there. I hope you all have a lovely evening and a stress-free rest of week, and we'll catch you all again next Wednesday.